Welcome to episode 26 of Accessible Finance, where we demystify personal financial planning topics so you leave saying, I get it now. I'm Eric Johns.
And I'm Rachel John.
Let's dive in.
All right, Eric, do you have a scenario for us today?
Yeah, something like that.
I love that.
All right, ready?
Yes.
All right. Couple earning above $200,000
Okay.
gross income. They're in their mid 30s. They have 3 children. All right. Their AGI, we're going to say, is $220,000.
Okay.
And they're spending $11,000 a month. Okay.
Okay.
They have 200,000 in taxable brokerage, 400,000 tax deferred, 100,000 Roth, HSA, they're maxing contributions, and they're paying current medical expenses with their brokerage. Okay. I'm sorry. They're maxing contributions and they're using it to pay their current medical expenses. I
Okay.
jumped the gun with a little planning consideration
I
there.
was gonna
Sorry
say,
about
what are
that. They also have $40,000 in their checking account. All right. So the idea
Okay.
behind giving you these figures is because these are kind of the things that we'll need to think about. Had to get the pen. What? This is fun.
It's
We're
okay.
having fun. Why can't we have some fun? All right. We need to think about these things when we're doing planning, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to start us off?
Okay.
Talk about what area we should talk about first?
All right.
Do you have any thoughts?
Um,
Share
so I will say that the very first area that we tend to look at is cash flow, since that impacts every other area that's there. So
'em?
cash flow
Absolutely.
and budgeting is kind of our bread and butter.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, it says that couple spends 11,000 a month. So I'd want to delve into that and see how accurate is their
Right.
self-reported expenses.
That's fair.
And then what kind of categories are we talking about there? Are there any expenses that are more controllable, or things that we can kind of reduce right off the bat? Um, okay, so you said 11,000 a month. We look at the income sources. They're only having income right now from their W-2s.
Correct.
Okay. Um,
Yeah, they're both working. Let's say they make like 100K and then the other one makes like 130K.
okay. Okay. And so then we would also talk about like goals or anything like that to kind of nail down in that cash flow process um what additional expenses may be coming up on the horizon, or things that they want to plan on including in their budget. So thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah.
No thoughts.
No, no thoughts at all.
Okay. I will say I really like the goals exploration meeting personally, just for me alone, because before getting into the numbers and the nitty-gritty, I like genuinely want to know the people.
Yeah, I mean that's completely reasonable.
Um so we're just gonna assume we did that, and they're basically like, look, no, we just want to like
Correct. They want to
maintain.
maximize their financial well-being. They want to make the correct decisions. That just generally speaking, they want college for their 3 kids.
Okay.
So like 529s are at the top of the list. You make 529s for each of the 3 children. That's pretty low-hanging fruit.
Right.
One of the first things we look at is our scenario. We had said $100,000
Yeah.
and $130,000 gross. Okay.
Right.
That's their gross salary. And we said their AGI is 220. So if it's 230 gross and they're at 220, they're only deferring 10K.
10. Right.
All right, so first thing is let's make sure you're getting your employer match.
That's what I was gonna
Let's
ask.
assume that they are.
Do they have, so both in this scenario would have a like retirement plan with a,
Yeah,
okay.
let's assume that there's going to be some kind of a
Most
match of it.
most people do. Okay.
Yeah, most people do. So we're going to want both to get their match. They are, but they're only spending $11,000 a month.
Okay.
Okay. That means they have a significant amount of excess that they should be saving to the brokerage account, right? We see that they have $200,000 in a brokerage account. That's kind of excessive. So what we're trying to do, the first thought that pops into my head with this couple, well, actually, the first thought is going to be revolving around the HSA. But
Mhm.
let's table that for a second. Is they have a lot of money in their brokerage account. $200,000 is more than 3 months emergency fund. Okay,
That's
they
what I
said
so
11K a month.
that's where my head was initially when we were talking cash flow. Like, it's just making sure that we have an emergency fund,
Right,
making sure we have it earmarked as an emergency fund, so it's
right,
not accidentally spent.
right.
So
Sorry, one
typically that
sec.
would be housed in like that brokerage account,
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be housed in the brokerage account. It's just gonna be. Look, I'm gonna go off camera. I gotta get a calculator, guys. Sorry, prepared. We're prepared. We're prepared. We're having
Okay,
fun.
okay, okay, okay.
Okay. Um. So, sorry, where are we headed? Where are we going? Rachel, guide us.
So you were talking about how the brokerage account
Got
is a
it. I'm
lot of
on board
money,
again. Yes.
right?
Not all of it's going to be in the emergency fund. The
Right.
emergency fund you're going to want in like a money market. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to want that money very liquid. You don't want it particularly volatile, and you want it accessible to you at the same amount that you invested in. I don't know if that made any sense at all. But if I put $200,000 in the stock market, I do not want to have to withdraw it when it's worth
Right.
$100,000 after we incur a very real recession or a huge
Well, if
market
it's in a
crash.
money market account, you're not losing
If I
money.
put $200,000 in a money market account, when I go to withdraw my money, the least that I can get is $200,000.
Right.
So that's the kind of investing you're going to want to do in your emergency fund. Let's assume, so we said they had $100,000 and $130,000 were their two salaries.
Right.
So we're going to say 3 months is probably sensible, unless there's some real volatility or risk involved with one of their employments.
And
Okay,
again, good rule of thumb, right, is that if you've got two sources of income or two people working, 3 months is usually pretty reasonable.
correct,
And then if you got a single source of income, particularly if it's in, the average range, we're looking more like six.
exactly correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so if we have the 11, right? Oops. If we have 11K per month
Hmm.
times 12 months after tax, they're 132K a year.
Okay.
Their after tax income is probably close to like 180.
Yeah.
So we're looking at about 50K of excess. And so what may have been happening is maybe they both got raises, maybe they didn't really change their contributions to their or deferrals into their 401k plans. Okay, maybe they didn't. Maybe they're just cruising along at the match,
Sure.
which is what everybody should be doing the match. We've talked
Yeah.
about that a number of times. Okay. So we want to try to get some of this $200,000 of excess savings. And I say excess because I'm thinking maybe we save about 33K for an emergency fund, right?
Okay.
We said 3 months or times
Right.
11K a month,
Right.
$33,000. All right. We also have 40K in their checking
But
account.
it's also important to note that that emergency fund is not necessarily needing to be replenished like annually, right? So like once
Once
it's
it's there, yeah, it's there.
correct.
You
So
set it and
it's
forget it.
not really like next year,
Correct.
right?
It
You're
shouldn't impact future cash flows, what you're saying.
correct.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. So
Absolutely
continue.
correct. Okay. So we got maybe 33K from the emergency fund. Then we look at their checking account. We're like, whoa, you guys got 40K in your checking account. There's your emergency fund right there.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't even need it.
So yeah, they really don't need very much of that 200K at all to be their
Correct.
emergency fund. Okay. So now they've got like, let's say 190K. Let's say they need a new car soon.
Hmm.
Right. Hey, maybe they're really conservative. They want to have enough on hand for two cars. Maybe they want $80,000. Right. Maybe they buy Toyotas and,
They're on the
40K-ish
wait list for a
ballpark,
year.
somewhere like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, seriously.
exactly.
So they buy
Okay.
sensible cars, um, maybe 40K a car, 80K, round up to 100K. Okay, so we had 200K in a brokerage account. We're going to reserve 100K for cars. All right, we already have our house. We don't need that.
Okay.
Let's say the couple does, right? We're spitballing here.
Yeah.
So
Couple
we
owns
have
a
a
house.
$100,000 in brokerage. Should it be there if we want that $100,000 to be used for retirement? The answer, no. No, it should not. We wanna try to get that brokerage money into either tax deferred or Roth accounts.
And that's one thing in looking at that that stands out to me is that the majority of people that we work with, when they come to us, do not have money in all three types of buckets.
Sure, that's
So in
absolutely
this scenario, you're talking about, a couple who's got money in taxable account, a tax deferred account, and the tax free account.
right.
So the fact that they have diversified their types of accounts is really great because then we
Correct.
can really just continue to
Yeah,
capitalize
we're
on
happy
that.
with that. We're happy with that fact
Right.
for sure. So you might be thinking, well, you said you want to put 100K into retirement accounts. Well, maybe you're thinking, why don't you just do it? Why don't you just go and deposit $100,000 into your 401K? Well, you can't do that. That's not how it works.
They don't
Maybe you're
really.
saying, let's go throw it in a Roth. Well, you can't do that either. You also can't do it in a traditional IRA. There are contribution limits, right? So
Good.
each spouse could contribute $7,000 into an
Hmm.
IRA, whether it's Roth or traditional, and then the deductibility is based on your income, all right? But we can't get more than 14 there. So what we would want to do probably is we would want to start with increasing our withholdings significantly. So you can ratchet up your withholdings even in excess of this $132,000 that they're spending a year. We said they spend 11 a month. They could withhold everything but like 10K a month and then pull 1,000 a month from their brokerage account to supplement. Does that make sense at all?
I see. So you're saying to pull that to help supplement the additional $1,000 shortfall from your
Exactly. So we
now.
want to make up some of our paychecks
Sure.
from withdrawals from our taxable brokerage account.
Okay. I like that. Now I will say, Not all retirement plans are created equal.
Absolutely
So
true.
some people that we've worked with have had really great retirement plans where having more deferred to go into your retirement plan is beneficial because the plan itself is really great.
Right.
We've also seen plans that have been far subpar
Yes.
or suboptimal. So maybe you don't want to put anything additional into that retirement plan beyond the
Absolutely
match.
agree. Very good point.
But so then what do we do if I don't want it to go into a straight brokerage account,
Okay.
but I don't want to participate beyond the match in my workplace retirement account?
Right.
How can I put it into something that is tax deferred but not
That's a great
through
question.
work?
That's a great question. So hopefully, hopefully one of you works for Oshner. No, hopefully one of you works for a
Asha Plan
company
is really
with
good.
a reasonable 401k. Because
Yeah.
like Rachel said, the fees can vary from 0 basis points or Oshner's, I believe is $5 a year, or maybe it's 25,
That's
some very low
wild.
nominal amount a year. I believe it's $5 for administration fees. And then you're just paying the funds expense ratio. And if your plan has sensible funds, you're looking at like Vanguard options if you're an Oshner, very reasonable. That's almost the same thing you're gonna be doing in a brokerage account or like an account that you basically have full autonomy over, full control over. Okay, so you're making the same decisions there.
Mhm.
What do you do if you can't do that? Maybe both, let's assume both 401ks are bad. They're not good. What do we do? That's unfortunate, but we're gonna look at both the plans. We're probably gonna choose the least
The
worst
least,
option
the lesser of
and we're gonna put some money there.
evils.
We're definitely gonna do a couple things though. We're definitely gonna use our brokerage account to fund our healthcare expenses. So we're gonna use an HSA because those are those are a little bit more standardized, and typically they're not gonna have large investment fees associated with them. What we're gonna do is we're gonna save in our HSA account. Now, this is like a planning strategy that you want to talk to you want to either
You're a
research
professional.
thorough yeah, research it
Yeah.
thoroughly or talk to the professional you're working with. So what you can do is you can keep all of your receipts. You can like scan them. What we'd usually advocate is scan them and then upload them to like a secure document storage facility, basically.
And some of the administrators of like HSAs will even have like apps
They
and stuff
very well
on
might.
them
I would
that
I would also I would also advocate keeping your own records because when it comes down to it, if you get audited later in life and we try to withdraw like 60K of health expenses in 1 year, the IRS might want to see your receipts. So you're gonna have to be able to show them. So typically you'll keep like a spreadsheet and then like a receipt database. Okay. And then what you do is you don't take the withdrawals from your HSA to pay your current medical expenses. Okay. You withdraw from your taxable dollars. Why would you do this? Because the taxable dollars are incurring tax consequences. Okay, that means you have to pay tax based on the fact that you have those dollars there and they might be earning interest or producing some
So
kind of
let's
dividends.
backtrack a bit and just elaborate kind of on an HSA and some of the characteristics that make it separate than or different from like a typical savings account or brokerage account, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair
HSA
enough.
stands for health savings account,
Yep.
right? And so what are the restrictions on participating in an HSA and what
Very good question. I
makes
like
it
to just
different?
assume that everybody we're
I
talking to
do.
is a financial advisor, and that's not the case.
Because I think that once you've understood the differences between like a checking account, your brokerage account, and your HSA account, it makes it a lot easier to understand
Why you would want to do
how
such a thing.
impactful this would be.
Yes. So the HSA has a tremendous amount of benefits. First, you have to be in a high deductible health plan, which can be thought of as unfavorable in that you have a very high deductible. They're not going to pay for your healthcare expenses, all right? You're going to be paying most of that bill for your healthcare
Mhm.
expenses, all right?
So in this scenario, we have to assume that this couple is in
A
a
high
high
deductible
deductible
health
health
plan,
plan.
correct. They have to be or they wouldn't be eligible to participate in
Right.
HSA. All right. So you have to be in a high deductible health plan. And then if you make contributions to an HSA account, they are tax deductible. All right. So that means you don't pay taxes on the front end. They're tax deferred or tax deductible in the current year. That's just like a 401k where it just reduces your W 2. All right.
Mhm.
And if they're actually withheld from your employer's W 2, then you don't even pay FICA taxes on them, which is just payroll. So don't worry about that.
But more
Pay
than
even
anything,
less.
like right now, the gross income's 235,
Correct.
AGI is
Well, we
220.
said 30 because I gave a different example than is typed out here. I
I'm
apologize.
sorry.
Go on.
So we're saying the gross income's 230,
Yep.
the AGI is 220.
Yep.
How would contributions to an HSA
They're reducing that AGI.
correct? So instead of reporting on the tax return that their AGI is 220,
They're going to report.
every dollar that you're putting into your HSA plan
You're going
reduces that.
to, right. It's going to reduce your tax by your marginal tax bracket times the dollars contributed.
You managed to take
I
some
screwed it up
notes.
again. I screwed it up again. All right. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm
if
sorry.
you want to go into details and weeds, like your professional will certainly guide you through that.
Right.
But if we're talking like zoomed out
Sorry.
view,
Okay.
um,
Zoomed out view.
really just
Tax deferred on the front end,
yeah.
similar to a 401k or a traditional IRA. Okay.
Okay,
They have tax deferred growth, okay, which means you're not paying tax on what happens to the investments that you're choosing within the account. All
correct.
right. And then when I take the distributions from the account, similar to a Roth, they're tax free if they are considered qualified distributions, which is for qualified medical
Medical.
expenses. Okay. So I keep my stack of receipts. I let this stuff grow tax deferred, forever, right? We'll get into that, but not
Mhm.
forever. Um, and then when I take it out, it's tax free. So I get triple tax advantage. That's what they usually say.
Triple tax advantage.
Triple tax advantage savings, right?
Okay,
So it's tax deferred on the front end,
got it.
tax deferred or tax free growth,
Right.
tax free when you withdraw it. So you never pay tax on the dollars, really at all,
I was gonna say
ever.
you don't pay at the point in time you're putting it in, and you don't pay at the point in time that you're taking it
Correct. You
out,
get to deduct it when
and
you
then
put it
you
in. Exactly.
also never pay
On
on
the
the growth.
growth along the way. So it's quite
Yeah.
nice. It's really the best treatment you're going to get, but
Mhm.
it has to be for qualified medical expenses.
Yeah,
So what people will do is if they have excess cash flow, they will use that excess cash flow to pay for their current medical expenses,
okay.
right? And then they will take the money out of the HSAs later. Typically, you'll do the death of the first spouse. Okay. So HSAs can be used as they basically turn into like tax deferred accounts or retirement accounts once you hit 65. All right. You can still use them for medical expenses, but if you don't, you can take a withdrawal and you just pay tax on it. So worst case scenario is I leave a bunch of money in an HSA and
Right.
then it's the same thing as my 401k or traditional IRA.
So,
Does that make
like for
sense?
example, you have an HSA, right, and then you pass away. That's what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So you have an HSA, you pass away. When it comes to me, I can treat it as though it's any
You
other.
could actually still just like I could so maybe we have $100,000 in an HSA.
Okay.
I'm 70 and I'm dead.
Okay.
All right, it goes to you. You can then start taking like you have $60,000 worth of receipts. You can take a $60,000 distribution tax free, okay, and
Hmm.
just that's it.
Because it's for medical.
Yeah, for medical. And then you
Okay.
have $40,000 in
So
the
it doesn't
HSA. What
have
do you
to
do with
be
that?
for the medical
Doesn't have to be
needs
current
of.
year. Definitely
Okay.
doesn't have to be current year.
No. But
It
I'm
doesn't even
saying
have to be survive.
it
It
wouldn't
doesn't even
even
have to
have
be
to
the
be for
living
you.
person.
Okay.
No. No, it does not.
Now, if you were living, would it have to be for you
Yeah, it has to be for you or like I believe it's one of your
or family?
parents.
Okay, I was gonna say for kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um.
Anyway, the last return, even if it doesn't have to be for you, you're going to file it married filing jointly. So you just do it on the last return,
Yeah.
and then take the distribution there. But anyway, the point is, even if you're left with some amount of money in the HSA that exceeds your medical expenses, you can still get access to that money and still be in a great spot. It's basically as if you just had another traditional IRA account. Does that make sense? Like it's the same tax treatment as a traditional IRA once you're 65,
Correct.
with
But
upside of if it's medical, you're still good to go.
exactly, like the fact that the worst case scenario
Is
is
something you're already good is already good. Worst
right.
case
It's
scenario is
already a
good.
vehicle you use.
Right. It's just that you have to wait till
Yeah.
65 to be able to access that good nature of the scenario. Because
Okay.
there's a 20% penalty if it's
If it's before.
non-medical and, pre-65.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So that's a viable strategy. It does it require tracking of expenses? Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
tedious, right? You have to make like a spreadsheet so that you know, and then you need the
And
receipts
it
as well
requires that you already qualify on the front end
for
for
high
an
deductible
HSA.
health plan.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right. Right.
HDHP.
So one of the things that we would talk to them about then, like you were saying, is contributing to the HSA,
Right.
but instead of using the HSA funds to pay for the medical expenses currently,
Mhm.
dipping into that brokerage account because it's less tax advantaged for them, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So we're trying remember, we have an excess in this brokerage account. We're paying more taxes on our brokerage account than we want to.
Yeah.
All right. Let's assume that it's $100,000 and maybe we have it all in like in a money market right now. That's producing like
Mhm.
$5,000 of taxable income. Okay. It doesn't sound like a ton and it's not a ton,
Yeah.
but you might be paying, $1,000 of tax on that or so that you don't really want to pay. So if we're trying to take that and reduce that tax burden, then we would do things like pay our health expenses right now with that account.
Right.
We could also spin down that account and then defer the money into your 401ks,
Hmm.
right? So in excess of the IRA contributions. And then what we're definitely going to do um, is we're going to backdoor Roth. So
That's what I was going to ask
we're
about.
going
I'm
to make
surprised you didn't start there, honestly.
almost everyone, if you have excess income, once you're getting the employer match, sorry, once you're getting the employer match, you're almost certainly going to contribute $7,000 per spouse in 2024 to an IRA.
Hmm.
whether it is a traditional IRA or a traditional IRA deductible contribution, traditional IRA non-deductible contribution, or straight to a Roth, you're going to make one of those contributions. So you're going to take 14 grand, you're going to shove it in one of those places,
Okay.
right?
How are you supposed to know which one to put it in?
No, you can Google it. No, it depends on your situation. I
Okay.
mean, it's unsatisfying answer. It truly does depend. You can't go straight to a Roth if you are over the Roth contribution limit. Okay. And so that's why people call this a backdoor Roth. Okay.
Right.
So what you do is you make a non-deductible contribution to an IRA, a traditional IRA account. All right. You're not going to be able to deduct on your tax return. It means it's after tax dollars I put in there. You can then convert it really the next day to a Roth account
Okay.
and you're done. Now you have a Roth contribution.
I'm so
Why is this
I was
allowed?
gonna say, why do they let us do this?
Doesn't this sound ridiculous?
It
Yeah, it
sounds
does.
fairly
It's
cagey
probably because congressmen and women wanted to do this, and they're happy
for
to have
themselves.
yeah, honestly, I don't know. Maybe the financial planning industry lobbies them so that we have something to do. No, I don't know. I truly don't
Uh,
know. But it should have been corrected forever ago, and it's not. It's like, why does
yeah.
carried interest loophole still exist? I don't
Yeah.
know, because, hedge funds are good at lobbying, I guess.
And this is one of those things where taking advantage of the opportunity to do that now. I mean, they're mid 30s,
Right.
right? Think about how much tax-free growth they have the
It's quite
opportunity
a
to do if
bit.
it happens now.
Exactly.
So like making even if you're not sure, even if you're not even looking to work long term with a planner, being able to sit down as early as possible just to review, come up with a plan,
Right.
even if it's a one time, like, am I really far off? What are some things to consider? Um, you can make hugely impactful decisions now for the remainder of your life. Um, of course, our advocacy is typically not like one time plans. We do like to continue working with clients because scenarios and situations
Right.
change. Um, but that's certainly a huge upside to being there early because they're going to have infinitely more years of compounding
Mhm.
interest. Another thing with those kids is that we would certainly be looking at advocating certain legal protections for that as far
Yeah,
as
will with guardianship.
correct.
Sure. Just to recap though, we covered spending down the brokerage, and we mean by that is increasing deferrals,
Yeah.
maybe even in excess of your cash flow needs. So that means I might be deferring a ton. Maybe I'm spending 132K.
Yep.
Maybe I'm going to defer everything I make over $100,000. Well, where's that 32K coming from?
The
My
brokerage.
taxable brokerage. I'm going to actually spin that down.
Hmm.
Okay. Second, HSA. Track your expenses, make a spreadsheet, and then track the receipts, and then pay your expenses from your taxable account. Pay your healthcare, qualified healthcare expenses
From the brokerage.
today with your after-tax dollars, and then later, after it's exhibited tons of growth, you're gonna have tax deferred growth on the whole thing, and then tax-free on qualified healthcare. Then we go back to that. All right. Then we take our money later in retirement or after the death of their
And
spouse.
this is right there is one of the reasons that having an ongoing relationship would be beneficial because like
Yeah, we're gonna be
we
talking
can
through the
say
best
this
case, best timing
exactly,
for it.
but you exactly the timing is really important. Really quickly though, can you touch on why? I mean, I think that the average person would be sitting there being like, "Oh my gosh, my brokerage is so big. That's so great. Like I'm so excited. I
It
want
is
this much
good. We're
money."
happy.
So then why are we focused on spending that brokerage down that we work so hard to fill up?
Because we decided that we don't need that money for anything even on the horizon. We actually decided that we think we want that money in retirement. So if you want the money in retirement and it's not in a Roth or a traditional IRA,
Yeah.
probably change that.
Yeah.
Think about it at least.
Right.
Just think about the change. I'm
Just
not saying
because
always change it. You just need to be intentional with your use of your
correct.
dollars and the time horizon that you're, planning for.
Correct. So just a different scenario. It doesn't mean that your brokerage is always something that should be spent
No.
down.
Remember, we have 2 cars in our brokerage and our emergency fund.
Yeah. We have
That's a
everything.
lot. We're gonna have like 120K in the
Yeah.
brokerage. You just don't need like there's no reason for you to have multiple millions in your brokerage if you're not gonna spend multiple millions yearly.
Right.
And you don't need the income
All
produced by
right.
those millions. You're not living on the interest. They're perfectly fine in cash flow. They're way in the
Correct.
black.
Exactly. So like if you're talking a time horizon that's like retirement or beyond, a tax deferred or a tax free account is
It's the way you want to be
where it's at.
saving.
Yeah.
Yes. You want the compound growth, not incurring tax drag in a taxable brokerage account. Okay. So we talked about HSAs,
Yep.
we talked about ways to reduce your brokerage,
Yep.
and we talked about backdoor Roths, right?
Correct. Correct.
Reasonable?
Three solid things. And then after this, if there were so sorry. After this, there were more questions or additional planning considerations. Typically, having this conversation with a couple leads them to say, "Oh, well, I have this," or "What about this?" Because oftentimes there's other additional like accounts or things here and there or concerns that come up that we would certainly look at as well.
That's right.
Mhm.
So if you enjoyed today's episode, please follow and review the show. And if you have any topics you'd like discussed or financial problems you would like solved, reach out to us at podcast@equilibriumfp.com.
Till next time.
Thanks.